For years, the state's been bragging about its Firehawk firefighting helicopter.
A helicopter like this will then be deployable rapidly, available around the clock in Colorado as needed.
Just one problem. It sits in a hangar unused, costing taxpayers millions. The governor's plan to take more control of RTD to help his preferred train projects get rolling. About a third of Colorado's legislators were first appointed, not elected. There's a proposal to change that. And a front row seat to DU's championship celebrations through the lens of a student. Tonight on Next. One of Colorado's best tools to fight wildfires just sits there, costing taxpayers millions of dollars a year. Our Mark Salinger has learned that for more than a year, you've been paying a pilot and a mechanic to come to Colorado to fly a firefighting helicopter that is not allowed to go into the air.
Welcome, everybody. We are really excited about the progress Colorado is going to make.
This story starts back at a time when social distancing and face masks were still new.
A helicopter like this will then be deployable rapidly.
In March of 2021, Democratic Governor Jared Polis stood in front of a $24 million Firehawk helicopter.
It's official.
And signed a bill that bought Colorado a powerful new tool to fight wildfires from the sky.
The new helicopter will join a fleet of emergency response aircraft to get our first responders off the ground sooner, quicker.
3 years later, nothing has gotten off the ground. The first helicopter was supposed to be delivered by the end of 2022. That didn't happen. In fact, Colorado will only finally take possession of the Firehawk this week. But that didn't stop the state from signing a more than $2 million contract with an aviation company to hire pilots and mechanics to come fly the helicopter for all of last year. A helicopter that couldn't fly.
The contract was not something that was easy to back out of, right? There's not a pause button on a contract. It was a one-year contract that we were kind of obligated to fulfill.
Mike Morgan is the director of the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. He says delays in certifying the aircraft, recalls on the engine, and problems with the water tank have all set the project back almost a year and a half.
It was very frustrating that there were a lot of delays in the process that were beyond our control.
They're doing us no good sitting in a hangar in Centennial.
Republican state representative and current congressional candidate Mike Lynch sponsored the bill to buy the helicopter.
It's frustrating because we anticipated that this asset would be put to work right away. That's a lot of money to spend on an asset.
Republican Senator Perry Will sponsored the bill in the Senate. He hopes the helicopter will eventually pay for itself by stopping fires from being so destructive.
What's the cost of putting these fires out? We've got fires we got several $100 million into, for firefighting efforts on them.
Years of waiting and millions of dollars later, the Firehawk will finally fly for the first time tomorrow.
You don't run down to the local Firehawk dealer and buy a Firehawk helicopter and, like you would a car and drive it off the parking lot. It's very complex, very complicated.
The state spent $24 million to buy that first Firehawk helicopter 3 years ago. Lawmakers were so excited about how it could help firefighters fight wildfires that then they spent $26 million more to buy a second one in 2023. Neither of those have flown a single second fighting fires here, Kyle, in Colorado.
So what do you do with a very expensive helicopter that you can't use for its intended purpose?
So you heard me say that it's going to make its first flight tomorrow. We're told that it's flying from Centennial Airport to Broomfield Airport so that it can be the backdrop for a press conference that the governor is hosting on Wednesday on Wildfire Outlook.
Yeah.
From there, they believe that they should be hopefully able to get it back up and running and hopefully can fight fires this season.
Sure. And now you've ruined the backdrop for the press conference.
I didn't ruin it.
You just told people what was going on.
How much it was cost.
Kind of your job. All right. Thank you, Mark. Douglas County and El Paso County are teaming up to sue the state to allow their law enforcement to work with federal immigration agents. The lawsuit filed today challenges the state laws that block local law enforcement from detaining somebody based solely on their immigration status or sharing that person's personal information with immigration. The Republican sheriffs in those counties are outspoken that state restrictions on how they work with the feds on immigration are unconstitutional.
We are concerned about our inability to communicate effectively with federal authorities that we work with on a regular basis.
We hope to create an environment where local governments and the state can once again cooperate with the federal government and address a national crisis.
Douglas County's been passing a string of immigration-related policies as Denver struggles with a migrant crisis. Dougco recently banned buses from dropping off migrants there, despite no evidence that that has ever happened. RTD has no shortage of critics. One of them happens to be the governor right now, and that's why Democrats are proposing an overhaul of how RTD operates, a plan to give the governor more control. A bill at the Capitol now would whittle down RTD's 15-person elected board to 7 members, with 2 appointed by the governor. Democrats leading this effort say it'll streamline decision-making and help RTD focus on major rail projects, like 2 of the governor's priorities, Front Range Rail and a long-promised train to Boulder and Longmont. Critics, like some on Denver City Council, say that shrinking the board will take away representation from communities of color who want reliable service now, not just the next big project.
We really want the board to be viewing the system regionally. So to not be only interested in the services to their own district, but rather system-wide.
It takes away voters' voice in the state mandated projects, but also it takes away voters' voices currently for a system that they pay into more so than the state that is trying to take over the agency.
You will hear agreement from both sides there that this bill overhauling RTD would require new funding. Right now, RTD is funded largely by a 1% sales tax. Getting elected by voters is hard. Getting appointed by party insiders is easier. Almost a third of Colorado's legislators came into the Capitol that way. Take, for example, Republican State Senator Perry Will. You saw this man earlier in our program. In 2022, he lost his re-election for the state House. 2 months later, he was picked to fill a vacant state Senate seat. Boom, promotion. Thanks to the 4 out of 6 vacancy committee members who selected him. 4 people picked a state senator. 4. We've explained how this process has had an enormous impact on the legislature for years. And today, the first bill to change how it works got a hearing at the Capitol. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger explains what it would do.
The side door at the Capitol has been the entrance for 29 out of 100 current state lawmakers. When someone steps down, small vacancy committees appoint the replacement.
I beat someone who was appointed.
Democratic State Representative Bob Marshall is an exception. Almost every time, the person appointed to a vacant seat wins when the voters have their say at the next election for that seat. Marshall does not think the hand-picked head start is fair. He's proposing a ballot issue for voters to consider that says if someone is appointed to a vacant seat, they cannot run in the next election.
Some of our most outstanding legislators are appointees, but we're at 28 of 100 now. And if we're in a democratic system, that just looks really bad.
When there are so many, you can understand why it's hard to keep track. It's 29, not 28. And Democratic State Representative Lorena Garcia is one of them.
Our vacancy process is not transparent.
She dislikes the party insider process that put her in office at the start of last year with 24 votes.
If we really want to address vacancies, we need to address how within a vacancy process we can engage the broader community. For me, that's transparency.
Vacancy committees are made up of party insiders in the House or Senate district where the seat has opened up, and they consist of anywhere from about a half dozen to maybe 100 or more.
Which I agree with you, it's a hot mess.
Marshall's bill was heard in a committee of 11 today, with 4 of those 11 getting their start at the Capitol through the side door.
I'm a no vote on this bill. This bill would not have served my community.
Democratic State Representative Kyle Brown won 41 out of 51 votes in 2023 to represent Louisville. Voters get their first say about him in November. Same with Democratic State Representative Manny Rutinel. Democratic State Representatives Stephen Woodrow and Andrew Basenecker have both been elected by voters since being appointed.
We all know it's an issue. I wasn't going to go back to my district and say I knew about this issue all session and I took no action whatsoever on it.
The bill passed with lukewarm support out of that one committee. It now goes to the full House. It needs 2/3 support from both the House and Senate for you to see it in November. I'm going to say unlikely. There's also a proposal that could be put by voter or on the ballot by voters, also by former DaVita CEO Kent Thiry. That proposal would require a special election for vacancies, which would cost counties money and perhaps leave districts without representation for a time, which is one of the arguments why these vacancy committees are necessary, so that you don't have no representation.
I suppose there's also the question of, like, why do we have so many vacancies, especially lately, right? I mean, there have been a ton of people who have bailed on serving.
Democratic State Representative Jenny Wilford brought that up in the committee hearing, asking about why doesn't this address the root cause of low salary for lawmakers and hostile workplace environment, which the last couple of people who have resigned cited. I would say perhaps that's an issue, but none of the other lawmakers have so far brought forth a bill to address low pay or workplace environment. So it's not just one lawmaker that could do that.
Yeah, you get the sense that it's probably not a super happy place to work. All right, Marshall, thank you. You all just wrapped up your 200th straight week of your Word of Thanks microgiving. The latest recipient, Cross Purpose, a nonprofit that helps Coloradans break out of generational poverty through intensive career training. Between your weekly donations and your monthly recurring gifts to the Word of Thanks Fund, you raised about $25,000 to support their work, part of your $12 million and counting of generosity. If you know of a nonprofit that's making an impact and could use our help, please email me, next@9news.com.
It was such a cool moment just to kind of march down the streets of our campus and have people pouring out from every building that we pass, celebrating and cheering together.
A DU student gives us a front row seat to the historic victory and the celebrations that followed. And the feds are cracking down on oil and gas developments. Could mean millions of dollars for Colorado. That's next. The former Trump attorney, who's now trying to help the Colorado GOP exclude thousands of voters from party primaries, might get kicked off of 2 high-profile cases in Colorado. John Eastman's facing disbarment in California for drawing up the plan to overturn the 2020 election. He cannot currently practice law while he appeals a judge's recommendation to disbar him in California. He faces 11 disciplinary charges tied to his role in trying to overturn President Trump's loss in 2020. Federal judge is now requiring Eastman to prove why he should not be taken off those 2 cases in Colorado. Eastman is currently representing the Colorado GOP in a lawsuit to overturn the state's open primary requirements and kick unaffiliated voters out of the GOP primary. Eastman's also an attorney in a free speech case against a school district in Colorado Springs. He's representing a 12-year-old student who claims that he was told to remove a "Don't Tread on Me" patch from his book bag. Eastman's response is due later this week. The Biden administration is upping the price for oil and gas drilling on federal lands for the first time in decades, and that's a decision that could impact drilling on millions of acres in Colorado. The new federal rule, approved late last week, will require companies to pay 10 times more for an oil and gas lease on federal land. It's the first major update to the federal oil and gas leasing program in decades. The Biden administration says that they hope that the higher prices will cut back on quote-unquote wasteful speculation and also raise some funds to clean up abandoned oil and gas wells. Energy companies also have to hand over more of the royalties for the oil and gas that they get from under federal property, from 12% to nearly 17%. That could mean tens of millions of dollars more for states like Colorado, which get about half of those royalties. After a beautiful weekend, Kathy Saban's here with a look ahead.
That's right, Kyle. A windy, warm Monday ahead of that. Well, that's 80-degree reading we saw yesterday. Beautiful afternoon. But with the wind and the warmth comes elevated fire danger. Critical fire weather conditions with gusty winds on the eastern plains ahead of a storm already bringing snow to the Continental Divide and I-70 corridor. Winter weather and travel advisories are posted for heavy wind and snow in the mountains tonight. Denver could be looking at some scattered rain showers overnight. We need the moisture. 91 in Lamar today, 77 in Denver, 80 in Greeley. Those winds are really starting to pick up out of the southwest. Could see gusts to 50 and 60 miles per hour on the eastern plains. So that red flag warning has been extended out through 8 o'clock tonight for the wind, the warmth, the high fire danger, and low humidity. Tomorrow it'll be a high wind warning for eastern Colorado with gusty winds out of the northwest as that system begins to rotate across northeastern Colorado. We're seeing the snow really fill in west of the Continental Divide, where a winter storm warning could mean up to a foot of snow. Winter weather advisories cover Aspen, Eagle, the Vail Pass area, and Steamboat for 6, 8, 10 inches of snow tonight and tomorrow. For Denver, we'll see increase in cloud cover and a few light rain showers overnight, and then some heavier showers around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Could be raining for the drive tomorrow morning and off and on until about midday. And then we get a partly sunny afternoon, but it will be a whole lot colder than what we've been seeing the last few days. So windy conditions for the next couple of hours and then scattered overnight rain showers. That'll lead us to a cooler high tomorrow of 66. A break Wednesday, another storm and another round of rain, maybe even mixing with snow Thursday into Friday and into Saturday, ahead of a beautiful Sunday and Monday with sunshine and 71 a week from today.
It was clear that we were going to win. I grabbed my camera bag and sprinted down to the streets.
Pioneers in the streets, celebrating a national record 10th championship. A student takes us inside the party of the weekend. Next. DU just did what no school in America has ever done, win a 10th hockey title. Students poured into the streets after Saturday's win, and in the middle of it, DU student photographer was snapping away.
I really love photography. I think it's a really unique way to kind of capture moments and capture memories that people who aren't in the moment can experience and reflect on later. I've been a photographer for about 3 or 4 years, and then I've been at DU for 2 years and doing photography for both of those.
Down low, shot range, off the post of 10!
Campus was a ghost town during the game because everyone was at restaurants or bars watching the game or at watch parties, and then kind of 1 minute before the game ended, it was 2-0. It was clear that we were going to win. I grabbed my camera bag and sprinted down to the streets so that I could capture those first few people kind of pouring out into the hub and the heart that is our campus.
To the mountaintop!
I'm chronically overshoot everything, but that first photo that I got from the celebration, you have the Colorado flag waving over the crowd as students are packing University in Evans. That was the photo for the night. Just to have so many people rallied together around kind of a common cause, there was no negative energy or negative emotion. Everyone was just there, everyone was happy and ready to celebrate. It was such a cool moment just to kind of march down the streets of our campus and have people pouring out from every building that we pass, celebrating and cheering together. There was never a moment that I felt unsafe because our campus safety team, the Denver Police Department, Denver Fire Department, did a really awesome job coordinating and making sure that students had the freedom to celebrate and that everyone felt safe doing so. And to come back and 2 years later, be here for when they won the 10th championship, putting us at a record, more championships than any other school for hockey. It's such an incredible experience. This school has such a passion for hockey and for sports that is part of the reason that I chose to come to DU and part of the reason that I just love being here. Everyone was friends. Whether you knew them or not, you're in DU gear, you're in crimson and gold. You are DU, and we're excited to celebrate together.
Congrats to the Pios. We're back with your feedback next. Feedback tonight from Kate, who writes in, did not like that I pointed out that Dougco has banned migrant bus drop-offs in that county. As I noted, despite the fact that they have not seen one of those. Kate writes, have you never thought about being proactive versus reactive? Your comments need to be more tempered. Well, Kate, I would say there's absolutely nothing wrong with being proactive as long as we're being clear about the context here. In this case, talking about these migrant buses. Where are the bulk of those migrant buses coming from? They're coming from Texas. They're sent by Republican Governor Greg Abbott through his Operation Lone Star. He's specifically sending them, he said this, to Democrat-controlled cities. That's the reason why the buses are going to Denver and not to Dougco. As long as we're clear about where the buses are being sent, and we understand that Dougco's measure is symbolic at this point, then we're all on the same page. Indeed, proactive versus reactive. See you next time.